How it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to the simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. The chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. Some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol. Cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so or injure them or others. 10. Continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaim, "What an order, I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. C, that God could and would if he were sought.
Thanks, Jim.
Look real natural behind that thing.
And I've asked Jason to come up and read the promises.
Jason, I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Jason.
These are the promises. The spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook on life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises?
We think not.
I think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. But they will always materialize if we work for them.
Thank you, Jason.
And I've asked, I think, John to come up and read a couple of traditions of his choice.
I'm John, I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, John.
Yeah. Tradition 3, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking And 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
And I've asked, let's see, Tom to read acceptance, right?
Yeah.
Okay, been a long day, man.
Hi, I'm Tom, an alcoholic.
Hi, Tom.
Acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life unacceptable to me. And I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it is supposed to be at this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. Until I could accept my alcoholism, I could not stay sober. Unless I accept life completely on life's terms, I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world, as on what needs to be changed in me and my attitude.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much, Tom. And I've asked Dan to come up and read from the reading from the Daily Reflections.
Okay, my name's Dan, I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
June 24th is spiritual kindergarten. We are only operating a spiritual kindergarten in which people are enabled to get over drinking and find the grace to go on living to better effect, as Bill sees at page 95. When I came to AA, I was run down by the bottle and wanted to lose the obsession to drink. But I didn't really know how to do that. I decided to stick around long enough to find out from the ones who went before me. All of a sudden, I was thinking about God. I was told to get a higher power, and I had no idea what one looked like. I found out there are many higher powers. I was told to find God as I understand Him. That there was no doctrine of the Godhead in AA. I found that what worked for me, and then asked that power to restore me to sanity. The object of the obsession to drink was removed one day at a time. My life went on, and I learned how to live sober.
Thank you, Dan.
Is there any announcements for the good of AA? No newcomers.
Saturday, they having a cookout at the Alamo Club there. Time, I lost track of the time.
For 4th of July?
7 o'clock? Yeah. No, this Saturday.
Oh, yeah, I mean, for 4th of July get together?
No, I don't think it's just, having.
Summer festivities.
Okay,
And dance, DJ, food,
right on, man. Put on your dancing shoes and head on to the.
mosquitoes, fish flies.
All right,
John? I got one. Zion's going to open back up to let us go inside the building after Labor Day. It's only a couple months away. It sounds like forever, but they're going to let us back into Zion.
all right. If you have a buck, leave a buck. If you don't, that's all right. Keep coming back. You will. If you want to make this your home group, don't be homeless. If you want to make this your home group, see me after the meeting and we'll put your name on a card and celebrate your anniversary when it comes around. Any anniversaries? Speaking of that, any anniversaries? Okay. Tonight, we're honored to have Bill C., I think it is, Bill C., right? No. G.
Bill G.
G.
Don't you know how to spell?
I just knew him as Wild Bill, man. I never knew his last name. So, without further ado, let's give a warm welcome for Wild Bill. Tear it up, Bill.
My name's Bill, we're coming in.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, Bill.
I have no idea what I'm gonna say tonight. I thought about it, off and on over the past, a couple weeks or so since I was asked to do this. And, the alcoholic procrastinator. Well, I'll think about it later. I'll figure it out. Or write down some notes or an outline or bullet points or whatever, And I started to do that tonight. It finally dawned on me about 3:30 when I realized today's Thursday. I got a meeting. Oh shit, I got to talk tonight. And started to write down like an outline, and then it hit me, dude, you know, when I go to meetings, and half the time I go to meetings, I do not intend to speak. I'm a firm believer that I have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so I should talk or listen twice as much as I talk, right? So, but when I'm there, I'll hear somebody say something will strike a nerve, and I'll just feel compelled to say something. And a lot of times when I do that, people will tell me after the meeting, like, damn, man, what you said really hit home, man, you know what I mean? I love listening to you talk because it comes from here, you know what I mean? So when I'm sitting down and trying to write an outline of what I want to say, it's coming from here. You know, and I don't want to do that. I want to come from here, because this is where it's all at. Up here, I got 2 brain cells left, and they're both fighting for third place. So I talked to my sponsor today. We were having dinner. I said, man, I have no idea what I'm going to say. He's like, well, just talk about what you used to be like, what happened, and what you're like now. So that kind of made it easy for me. So, you know, I think I remember my first inklings that I was an alcoholic. I was like 14, I think. And I was out partying with my friends, you know, drunk, and, you know, I'd come home and lay down in bed, and then you know how that is. The room starts spinning, and before you know it, I'm grabbing the garbage can next to my bed and I'm throwing up in it, and I pass out. You know, the next morning I wake up, my mom's getting ready for work, and I'm getting ready for school, and there's an odor in the room, obviously, you know, so I had to get rid of this, because if my mom comes in my room after I leave, she's going to see it, and it's going to be hell to pay. So I remember taking the garbage bag and tying it up, and like my mom's bedroom was over here. You know, here's my room, here's her room, and I had to go across to get out to the backyard without her saying, what are you doing? You know what I mean? And I'm carrying this garbage bag, and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder how many kids are getting ready for school doing this right now. You know, but it didn't click. You know, obviously it didn't click. And I ended up getting into a lot of trouble when I was 18. Right after I turned 18, you know, I was in a gang, and we get drunk, and get rowdy, and play with guns, and ended up, you know, catching a case for attempted murder and felony firearm, willful discharge, carrying concealed weapon, all those beautiful felonies. And I knew that what I did, I would have never did if I had been sober, you know, and that's when it really started thinking to me, dude, why do you feel like you need to drink? Is when the questions started coming into my mind, you know what I mean? But I also noticed that when I tried not to drink and go out, I was miserable, you know? So, you know, this is my first case. 2 of the charges got dropped, the other 2 I pled guilty to, and I got some tether action and some probation out of it. And it wasn't long after that I got a drunk driver and got put on probation for that. And while I was going to court for this, you know, case, I graduated high school, and my lawyer asked the judge if I could leave state because I could have the opportunity to go to college. I didn't really want to go to college, but I knew that I was in big trouble, so I had to like make it look some type of way, like I was trying to, you know, better myself and stuff like that. And the judge said, yeah, he can go to college. So I did, you know, and when I left home for the first time and moved to Columbus, Ohio, that's when it really took off. You know, didn't have any parents to come home to or lie to or anything like that. And down in Ohio, for some reason, at that time, everything was cheaper. But, so I was drinking, and then I couldn't go to work, and I certainly didn't go to school. And I wasn't doing homework. I wasn't doing everything everybody else was doing for the reason that they went there for, you know what I mean? And I knew it, you know, but again, I was stuck with this idea that I'm miserable while I'm drinking, and I'm screwing everything up, but if I don't, I'm miserable too, you know? And things got out of hand, and eventually somebody from the college called my parents and told them, I guess my roommates had told somebody from the school had called my parents, and one day I got a knock on the door, and my parents were at the door, and they were like, this call. Looks like things are kinda out of control. Do you think maybe you have a problem? And it did, yeah. Yeah. And you know, I remember when I was a little kid, my dad was an alcoholic, but he was functional. And he had a second house up north in Harrison, Michigan. And every Friday night, we used to drive up north, and back then the speed limit was 55, and it took like 3 hours to get there. My dad would drink beers, and then he would hand me his beers, and then I would get him another one out of the cooler, you know, that was my job. And I remember hearing on the radio, you know, that, you know, drunk driving is against the law, don't drink and drive. And I asked my mom, I was like, Mom, Dad drinks and drives all the time, you know? She said, yeah, well, your dad is older, so his blood is thicker, so he can handle it, you know? And I think even in those days in college, something told me that I would grow into it, that I would be functional like my dad was. That never happened. That never happened. But I remember going to that meeting. It was an open talk just like this. And this guy was old, man. He was like this tall, and he was just older than dirt, looked like Yoda. And he was like, told his story. And there I was, I think I just turned 19. And I went to him after the meeting. I was like, dude, I could relate to everything you were just talking about. He said, well, that's probably because you're an alcoholic. And got me a big book, bought me a big book and all that. And I took that big book home and I closed it. Didn't open it, obviously. So anyways, man, long story short, I ended up getting dropped out. Moved back home to my parents in Harrison, Michigan, and violated probation shortly after that. And I did a little bit of time in jail. And then I got out again and was on probation. I got into a big fight with my parents and ended up going back to jail. And this time I came back to Macomb County for probation violation. And the judge said 90 days in jail, 90 days in treatment at Harbor Light, and 90 days in three-quarter house. That was in '96. That's when I moved to Mount Clemens. I didn't know anybody from Mount Clemens back then. So when I was in Harbor Light, we started going to meetings. You know, back then they used to take people. You could go get a job. You know, they used to get in a bus and take you to meetings and stuff. I remember coming to this meeting back then, but it was back down there. We get to my home group, Zion. We went to the Eleanor Club. We went to several meetings back Grace. And I wasn't ready to let go. And surrender. You know, the thing is, with this, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path, and therein lies the crux, thoroughly. You know, and what I wanted to do was, I thought I was just gonna come to meetings and I was gonna get fixed. And it took me a long time to figure out it doesn't work like that. You know, I wanted to recover, but I wanted to recover my way. I wanted to stop drinking and be relieved from the obsession to drink, but I wanted to do it my way. I didn't want to let go of my old friends. I didn't want to stop hanging out where I was hanging out. I didn't want to stop selling drugs. I didn't want to stop smoking weed, because weed wasn't the problem, right? I didn't want to break up with whatever girlfriend I had at that time. I didn't want to do whatever it takes to stay sober. Sometimes I would ask somebody to sponsor me, but I wouldn't call them. And it went on like that for like 17 years. From that time in '96, where I went to my first meeting with Yoda, until May 24th, 2012. And in that time, there was a lot of misery, man. A lot of homelessness, a lot of broken relationships, a lot of getting fired, a lot of in and out of jail, in and out of jail, in and out of jail. A lot of rehabs, and I wouldn't surrender. And finally I found myself in prison, and I had a bunkie that taught me how to make wine. Everybody, when you're in prison, you can't just work your little job. You get a little job and you get enough to make basically your monthly hygiene costs, toothpaste, deodorant, all that stuff. If you want anything extra, if you want to have coffee or something to eat at night, you gotta have a little hustle, or you gotta have somebody sending you some money or something like that. So that's what I thought I was gonna do. I was going to meetings, once a week to make it look good for the parole board, and I thought I was gonna make money and everything was gonna be okay. So I was making wine and I was selling it and I wasn't drinking and it was working out all right. And then I thought I was gonna just have one, and I drank one and that worked out okay. And then I would drink two. That worked out okay. And then one day I drank 4 bottles of this shit. And I don't remember a whole lot. I remember they had like maybe 8 steps. And I had a hard time getting up these steps. I had a couple guys helping me up the steps. CO saw me and they were like, you better tell him to go lay down, because they didn't want to deal with me. And I wouldn't, they told me, man, just go lay down, I wouldn't lay down. And I ended up picking a fight with some dude that had been down for like 23 years in the weight pit 3-4 times a week for the last 23 years. And here I am, barely over a year in prison, and I'm got something to prove, right? Well, yeah, it didn't work out. It didn't work out in my favor, he beat me. He beat me up pretty good, probably the worst ass whooping I ever took in my life, and I've taken a few. And they, searched my room and they found my setup where I was making wine and shit. So I ended up going to the hole, man. I went to the hole for 30 days, just like the song says. And I remember I got up and I was punch drunk and had a headache, and I'm still fucking drunk. And I look around me, man, I'm in the hole, and it looks just like a jail cell right here in Macomb Regional. Looks just like a jail cell, man, and I'm like, what the fuck did I do? What jail am I in? How did I get here? What happened? You know what I mean? I got up off the rack and I went to the door and I looked out and I realized, dude, you are still in prison. You haven't even gotten out of prison and you're already back in jail for the same shit. It's the same shit every time. Nothing changes. I don't care where I go. If I take a drink, I'm gonna go to jail. Whether it's in prison, out here in the world, or on the moon, I'll go to moon jail. I'm gonna go to jail sooner or later, or I'm gonna get homeless every time. And that really wasn't it. That was the beginning of the surrender. But it was the next day. I was bored and I needed to, it had been a while since I wrote my son, and I got some of this prison stationery, and they give you this little pen like this that you can bend because they don't want you to hurt yourself with it, and I'm sitting in there writing my son a letter, and I'm telling him how much I miss him and how much I love him. And it hit me that, dude, you're fucking lying to your kid. Because if you really loved your son, and if you really missed him and couldn't wait to get out to see him, then you wouldn't be doing the same shit you've done your whole life to keep you here longer. I had 6 to 15 to serve. If I did right and I saw the parole board after 6 years, I might get a parole and go home. But with this type of shit, they're not giving me a fucking parole, man. So I think that was it. I was entirely sick of myself. The old adage, you hear all these little quips and phrases around AA, sick and tired of being sick and tired. That's what that meant. And that's when I became willing to do whatever I had to do to stay sober, And so I started signing up. I got out of the hole and I started signing up for every meeting that they had. And there was AA, there was NA, there was Celebrate Recovery, there was another 12-step Christian group called the James Group, which was very interesting. Oh, they had Emotions Anonymous in prison. It's there. That was very interesting. But I tried to sign up for every 12-step thing I could find, and I asked a guy to sponsor me this dude that would come in to volunteer, and he was there every week, and started talking, and I remember being at a meeting and doing pretty much the same thing I'd always done. You know, I would go out, drink, carouse, get my ass tore out, and then come crawling to AA, and then do step 1, 2, 3. Maybe I'd ask somebody to be my sponsor. I'm not gonna call them, I'm not gonna talk to you, I'm not gonna tell you what I'm doing, because I don't wanna hear, don't do that. I wanna do what I wanna do. But I was doing it again, and I was at a meeting, and I was like, you know, I don't understand what makes me think this is gonna be any different. I've done this a million times. I get my ass tore out, I come to AA, I have full intentions that I wanna stay sober, but I always go back out, and I don't see what's gonna be any different about this time. And he said to me, have you ever done a 4-step? No. 17 years, no. He never looked at me. He was like, well, maybe you need to try something different. And I knew. I had to surrender. I had to apply these steps into my everyday life. So I made a commitment that I'm gonna write a 4-step, but knowing my propensity to procrastinate shit, I knew if I didn't set an end date, it was never gonna get done. I would procrastinate it until it never got done, you know? So I said I could give myself 30 days. And every day I'm gonna write. Now see, when you're in prison, you have these certain periods of the day that's called count time, where you have to go and you have to be in your rack, in your designated places, and the cops come around and they count everybody, because they want to make sure everybody's still there. So, at 4 o'clock count, that's what I did. And it was about 40 minutes, sometimes it was a half hour, sometimes it was an hour and a half, you know, when they couldn't count right or something, I don't know, but I wrote every day for 30 days, you know, I took a good look in the mirror, which is something that nobody wants to do. Man, I put that off for a million years, and for a million different reasons. You know, my disease would give me a million different reasons to not do a 4-step. Well, I don't know how, well, I don't have time. I mean, you know, whatever the case would be, during all that time that I was messing around doing the 1, 2, 3 dance. So I did that, you know, and it was like a little under 40 pages, 37 or 38 if I remember correctly, and I still have it somewhere. But then I had to do a 5th step, you know, and it really wasn't, you know, I mean, obviously when you sit down with another man and you look him in his face and you talk about everything that happened beforehand, it's gonna be a little intimidating. It's gonna be a little intimidating. But, you know, the thing was, I talked to him and I told him everything that was in my 4th step, and he didn't, you know, he didn't give me any of that. It wasn't, oh my God, wow, really? Oh, none of that. That was, I was kind of, the disease was telling me I was gonna get. And, you know, I heard a little joke about the 5th step. The sponsor told the sponsee that he wanted him to share something that he had told him, and he didn't want to do it. You know, you guys share it with the group, share it with the other alcoholics. So he did. Well, you know, he was nervous, he was scared. He sat down at the table and he was worried about it, and everybody talked. And then it came down to him, and then he had to spill. He had to let it go, and he was just like, his hand turned to talk, and he said, "I fucked the chicken." And dude at the table next to him looked over and said, "Did yours die too?" You know, and it's a silly joke, but the point is, there's nothing that I've done in my past that y'all haven't been through. And that's what it really, you know, my disease is a liar. My disease loves to over-exaggerate. It loves to make a big deal out of nothing. You know, and I didn't get that in my 4th step. I didn't get the shock and awe that I thought I was gonna get, you know. And 6 and 7, really didn't understand 6 and 7 very well. And then my sponsor, he sent me a book. It was called Drop the Rock. And it was a spectacular book because a lot of the things that was going through my mind was like, I'm looking at these character defects that we identified in my 5th step. And it's like, these are the things that made me me. It's my personality. This is what everybody's come to know and love and hate about me. You know what I'm saying? And so if I become an entirely ready God, have removed all these defects and character, what's going to be left of me? You know what I'm saying? And that was some real shit that I had to deal with. It was, you know, did I want to let go of this shit? You know what I mean? And basically, then when I make the decision to let go of these character defects, it's not that I stop being me. I just allow myself to be the me that God wants me to be. You know, it was the conclusion that I came to. And, you know, it was about writing an 8th step, and a lot of my 8th step was in my 4th step. There was some things in my 8th step that I remembered that I had to go back, that I didn't put in my 4th step, that I had to go back and talk to my sponsor about, you know what I mean? But I made a list, and I still have that. And I talked to my sponsor about it. So what am I supposed to do, man? You know, I got like, what, 4 years, whatever it was back then. How am I supposed to do this? He's like, do the best you can. Become willing and do the best you can. So I called my dad. And I said, Dad, I gave him a list of names. I said, I need these people's address. And my dad was more than willing. He gave me a list of everybody's address. So I started writing letters. And I didn't write these letters. What I didn't want to do is I didn't want to come at these people and be like, I'm sorry for this and this and this, because that has been said so many times. And I didn't want to, you know, so what I did is I just identified the things that I knew in my mind that I had done wrong and owned it. And said, let them know, you know, I'm doing this and I'm doing AA, which they had already heard a million times, but you know, I'm really trying to do better, and I sent them out. And a couple people didn't respond. Most people did respond, and they were like, you know, that's cool, man. You know, don't worry about it, man. I understand. You know, I know what you were going through. You know, and this and that and the other thing. And then my dad, I wrote one to him, and that one. I got the letter and I started reading it, and I remember he started off, you know, you wrote me a letter saying stuff that I've heard a million times, and you asked for forgiveness, and I don't think I can forgive you. He said, you know, your mom died at 59 years old from a heart attack, and I think you had a lot to do with that. And I got really upset, you know, I got mad about that. Crumpled up the letter, you know what I mean, threw it in the corner. And I you know, I dwelled on it for a long time, you know, until finally the next Wednesday came where AA came and my sponsor came in, and I went right up to him and I gave him the letter. I said, what am I supposed to do with this? And he started reading it. And he was like, well, listen, you know, the 9th step is not for him. It's not for them. It's for you, so that you can let go of the baggage of the past, so you can let go of that guilt and the shame that kept putting a bottle in your mouth. Besides, it looks like he forgives you. So what do you mean? How do you get that? This is what it says right here with love and forgiveness, Dad. And you know, for so long in my life, something would happen, there would be a stimulating event, and I wouldn't even process it. I wouldn't even feel it all the way out, and I would run right to a bottle. You know, and today, you know, stimulating events happen. Things happen, and I feel them. And I've come to realize that, you know, feelings are not necessarily good things. They're not necessarily bad things. They're just my mind and my body trying to tell me something. And so, you know, a lot of us, and I think it's American culture in general, you know, we get a feeling that we identify as bad. sadness or anything of the like, and we want to get our minds off it. We want to distract ourselves from it. We want to do anything we can other than do what the intention is, and that's to feel them. I mean, these feelings, they come from me, they're mine. They're like, you know, I had to look at them like they're like my child, you know what I'm saying? If my child was demanding something from me, crying or needing attention, would I do something to get my mind off of them? No. I'd give them my attention. Feel it. You know, and sometimes, and it's difficult, certain feelings are more difficult than others, and you gotta sit down and really just look at them and analyze these feelings, turn them around. What does this really feel like, you know? I came to a lot of conclusions doing that, like anger, you know, it's funny, when I got really angry and was aware enough to stop and say, okay, this is anger, what does this feel like? As soon as I tried to focus on that feeling, it went away. And I found out, you know, after a while, that the reason being is that anger isn't even really a primary emotion. Anger is a response to an emotion, and it's usually fear. So I have to ask myself, what am I really afraid of right now? When I find myself getting angry, what am I really afraid of? And what can I do about it? You know what I'm saying? So that was the 9th step, and the 10th step, you know, a daily inventory. And if you go with the 12 and 12 and read what Bill wrote about the 10th step, dude, it's like doing a mini 4-step every single day. If you really do it, you know, the way he talks about it, and it's a lot. But see, again, my first 6 years of recovery was in prison, where I couldn't get into relationships, and I had a lot of time to write. And that is like the 2 biggest thing I can tell anybody: stay the fuck out of relationships and write a lot. Keep a journal, man. Journal is invaluable, man. I mean, so valuable. But started writing about the 10th step, you know, and started taking a daily inventory, and something happened, man, when I was like, I'm trying to remember, I think I got into an argument with the guy in the bathroom about something stupid. You know, you get a lot of guys in close quarters, and you can snap at each other, you know, and I thought about it, man, you know, it's like, wait a minute, I've done something wrong. So now I'm writing about it, which is like doing a 4th step. And then I'm gonna talk about it with somebody in recovery, one of my homeboys with my sponsor. And then I'm gonna make amends. And now there's, you know, usually the amends are met well, and there's no hard feelings, and we learn and we grow. And I don't know, man, it was like, it all came full circle to me. How the 12 steps are just a way of life. It's just a way of life. It's a new way to operate in everyday life that keeps me from the shame and the guilt and the running from the feelings. And this, you know, then I started thinking about the Beatitudes, the humility, the gratitude that was taught to focus on, and acceptance. And it was like, it just came full circle to me that this is how God intended us for us to live. Just like this. And, you know, that was where I had like this spiritual experience that you hear so much about in this program. Where it was just what I call my aha moment. You know, and I remember for like a few days afterwards, man, in my head, you know, I was kind of like on another pink cloud kind of thing, you know what I'm saying? And I remember, I kept thinking to myself over and over in my head, why did I wait so long for all years, man, I just came to AA and the solution was right in front of my face. But I wouldn't surrender. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't let go of this me and long enough to just do what you guys have told me about. John, Dan, you know, a lot of you guys, I remember you from those days. I just wouldn't listen. It took me a long time to get to that point, you know, and I'm glad I survived long enough to get to that point, because sometimes I swear, I look back on my life and I can swear I'm immortal. But I'm not. So, what I did after that is I started getting really involved in the penitentiary, and I guess people saw something in me. And guys were, they asked me, will you sponsor me? And I was okay. You know, and we would go on the walks, and I would tell them the shit that I had learned in the 17 years that I had been coming around, you know, the quips and the phrases and the things like that. And then guys would ask me, man, I want to write a 4-step. And a lot of guys were telling me they wanted to write a 4-step. And I remember for all those years, you know, I never wrote a 4-step because I didn't know how. So I talked to the special acts lady, the one who does all the extra, you know, curricular classes and stuff. And I said, I want to have a workshop where guys can come in and learn how to write a 4-step. And she was like, okay. Well, how are you gonna do it? How do I do it? She said, we gotta write a proposal. You know, you're gonna need a classroom, you gotta put in the proposal, what you're gonna need, who's gonna be there, you're gonna have volunteers come in. I said, oh no. So I started asking volunteers. I asked my sponsor, I asked all the volunteers that came in for the 12-step groups. I said, oh, would you be willing to come in just for, you know, to have a workshop to help guys learn how to do a 4-step? And they were like, yeah, when? I don't know. So we picked a date, and I wrote the proposal, and I gave it to the special acts lady. She's like, okay, I'll give it to the deputy warden. The special acts lady signed it. All it needed was the deputy warden signed it. Deputy warden signed it. And then for some reason, he gave it to the warden, which is like, you know, the governor of Michigan. You know what I mean? That's what it's like, you know what I mean? And he read it, and he signed it, and for some reason, he sent it to fucking Lansing. And they were looking at it, and they started asking questions like, what is this? You know, what is this gonna do? You know, and I wrote a letter, this is, you know, and I told them my own experience. I was like, you know, I found recovery since I've been here, and I can truly say that my recovery didn't begin until I did a fearless and thorough 4-step. That's where it began, where I began looking at the problem. The problem is me. My perception, my attitude. And next thing you know, Griggs, pack up, you're moving. That's what they do. They don't want, I'll tell you guys something, the Michigan Department of Corrections does not want guys to get better. Keep them coming. Back. Keep them coming. So then they sent me to a level 1. But I'll tell you, when I was sponsoring these guys, when you sit down with a lifer to hear a 5th step, I don't think I'll ever have anything like that in recovery. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. And, you know, I heard things that I'll take to my grave, and it's an honor to be able to take it to my grave. But that is, you know, when I came to realize, you know, this program, if you look at our symbol, it's a circle with a triangle in it. And each side of the triangle, bottom says recovery, because that's the foundation. That's where everything is built upon, and that is found in the first 164 pages of the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book. It's the program. Then you have service, which is doing what I'm doing right now. Sponsoring a guy, trying to tell him how he can apply these steps to his everyday life, so that when he does his 9th step, and I can say, hey, look, man, this shit isn't for the I got out of prison May 31st, 2018. And I can tell you right now, if it wasn't for you guys here, I wouldn't be here. I can't do this. When the pandemic started, I went, 2 weeks without a meeting? I tell you what, I remember I was walking through Myers, and I went by that liquor aisle, and I said, I could get away with it. Yeah. I said, what the fuck was I thinking? What the fuck is this? I said, I gotta get to a meeting, so I started doing Zoom, you know what I mean? Started doing Zoom, and did what I had to do. Did what I had to do. I don't know, you hear all these quips and phrases and axioms and idioms and AA, one day at a time. 24 hours, let go and let God. And, man, I remember I used to hate hearing that shit, dude. Shut the fuck up, man. If I hear one more idiot tell me something stupid that I don't understand, you know what I'm saying? I was gonna lose it, but every one of them is true. You know, it's just 24 hours. 24 hours. What time is it? What time is it? Real question.
8:17.
8:17, so let's say 8:30. I usually go to bed about midnight, so I got what? 3 hamburgers. I don't know about tomorrow. I might get hammered drunk tomorrow. I might. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. But I know that today, for the next 3.5 hours, and no matter what happens, man, I don't care what happens or how bad things get, I'm not gonna take a drink of a drug. Thanks.
All right, Bill.